Let's talk about the new stride reveals that I have missed while I was in Germany, right? Nova Grappler, when your rearguard, restand by a card ability, counterblast 1, discard 2 cards from your hand, stand this unit, and if it's your main phase, attack your opponent's Vanguard with this unit. At the end of battle, this unit attack, this unit gets drive -1. So this just attacks over and over and over and over, as long as your rear guards keep restanding. This is like hyper aggro and hyper greedy, right? I think usually you will still stride into Bustard or the... what's his name? The other super aggro first stride that flips a bunch of stuff and retires and stuff. Like, those are usually going to be your first strides. I think this one you only really go into if you're like, damn, I guess I gotta just sack the living shit out of this guy. Or something like that, because like you're gonna not have hand at the end of this. This is like very much a one stride kill kind of card. Whereas Bustard is a set up a billion hand kind of card, right? It's nice as a first stride if you don't have the Bustard setup. I tried it out already. Cool, yeah, that makes sense. It's basically like, okay, first stride, Rage. It seems a bit greedy, but I think it'll come up. You probably play 1. It minuses hard. Yeah, of course. Like I said, like you just go all in greed and hope that kills it. Then next we have the G Guardian. When this unit is put on G, counterblast 1 or more cards, and this unit gets 5k shield until end of that battle for each face down card in your damage zone. If you paid 2, draw a card. If you paid 3, draw a card. Okay, so if you're desperate AF, this gets huge. If you already have a bunch of counterblast face down, this gets huge. If you add like a bunch of open and you pay a billion, then you draw a billion cards. I don't know if Nova can afford that CB because I don't play Nova that much. Seems like you'll probably run one, you know, because if you're like, damn, this guy, like I'm playing as Nightmare Dolls, for example. They're gonna do a billion attacks. I'm gonna take a billion damage. I want to survive. This might be it because it does draw you cards, potentially pieces to then like bash them back if you lived. But I don't see you using this, you know, as a primary game plan. It's more like an oh shit button to me. So we have Golden Knight of Prosperity Advarius, the Gold Paladin Stride. Continuous on V. All of your rear guards that were placed by a card ability this turn get power plus 5k. So this is mini Gurgit. That's already pretty cool. The clan does need that. If you're not playing like Hulka Hayden or of course Aglovale, your units don't tend to hit for much. So this is welcome. Also turns your Axel 2 kind of into an Axel 1, which can be cool. But I think the second skill is actually what's really important here, because I did see these cards before, by the way. Auto on V once per turn. When it attacks, cost counterblast 1. Put all of your rest rear guards on the bottom of your deck in any order. Choose up to 2 units from your hand. Call them to R. If you put 4 or more rear guards on the bottom of your deck, at the end of battle, stand this unit and it gets drive -2. So this is a restanding Vanguard that also does multi-attack rear guards. Its only weakness, of course, being that you're minusing yourself. But Gold's already like pluses to their field for free anyway, so I don't think that's the worst thing. It's definitely nice that Gold's has a card that isn't just Glorious Reigning. Because like usually it's like you just have Glorious Reigning and another flavor of Glorious Reigning. And then you have like Spearex, which by itself doesn't do anything. Like it builds field, but beyond the free stride, it's a do-nothing stride. Ultima, of course, is your oh shit, I need to win now button. So I do like that this thing will actually do something beyond, you know, please don't hit a defensive trigger. When put on G, cost Soul Blast 1, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 units cards from among them, call them to G. Discard the rest. If you call at least one grade 1 or greater unit, draw 1. It's pretty good, but it's not a PG. Though Slamy Flare technically sometimes is already a PG, so I think they didn't need one necessarily. You know, if you're a deck like Great Nature or Old Gridora where you did like Antlion Zoa shit, you never dare to do it against Gold Paladin because you knew they could like randomly Slamy and you would die anyway. So I don't think they needed it. I think this is definitely welcome. I also think they have plenty of soul to work with, so they're plenty happy to use this. Seems fine to me. Slamy needs rearguards on the field. Yeah, exactly. And Elise kinda sucks. So I think this thing is pretty good. This reveal is sponsored by the Solemn Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Do you enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh? Be sure to go subscribe right now. Very epic, exciting content, whether it is Master Duel, deck profiles for the modern game, TCG, a little bit of a competitive, a little bit of collecting, you know. For you Yu-Gi-Oh fans out there, it really is peak content, the peak channel to go and subscribe to right now. Thank you so much, Solemn Yu-Gi-Oh, for sponsoring this video. Anyway, Auto on V. When it attacks, cost Counterblast 1. Choose up to 3 cards from your drop zone with different names. Call them to R, and those units get power plus 5,000. So this is a better Night Rose, which is already pretty good. Now, of course, in Premium Granblue, where you have bad bounty, why would you do a better Nitros, right? Like, you're already gonna do a Nitros itself on top of already swinging with a Vanguard. And you could even do the break right shenanigans with Night Mist. So if this was the only line, I'd be, I will play one because it might come up. If I can't bad bounty because I'm running low on deck, this might still be better than Obadiah in terms of like output, but it would not be that great. However, the second line here says, continuous on V. If your drop zone has 30 or more cards, when your opponent would call to G from hand, they must call 3 or more cards at the same time. So this is a variance hard leg on top of being a slightly better Nitros. I don't want to say better Nitros actually because you're not getting the 5k, and that 5k does come up for certain attacks, like with your Beatrices, with your Night Storms and so forth. Not so much on the Skull Dragons, but so it does matter there. But, the first skill is very Nitros-esque, and you do get an extra booster, technically. Kind of diminishes the issue. With that being said, this other line, a variance hard leg on top of a Nitros turn, is pretty crazy. Now, I do have to make it very clear that 30 drop is very hard, because by the time you get here, you usually have 4 or 5 damage, and you might have a soul or 2 that you might be saving for Beatrice, by the way. And you also have some deck still, and you might even have some hand still. So that hand is definitely going away. You're gonna sacrifice your hand to do this. You might still not have it because you might still have deck. Definitely like your last stride, and then if this fails, you're dead. It's over. I can see a future where you have a deck that literally just strides this and does some wombo combo and prays that it works out and then just auto loses afterwards. But alternatively, I could also just see this being played in literally every Granblue deck, and where you're just like, okay, I'm close to deck out, bad bounty isn't gonna work, I'm just gonna do this and pray and it might just work out. I definitely think it fulfills that niche pretty well, because historically Granblue does have the issue of, oh fuck, I deck out and then I auto lose, which this card kind of mitigates. I think it is utility that the clan needed. The alternative for this would have been just a card that doesn't make you deck out, like send some cards back, not triggers necessarily, but just send some cards back, keep on playing the game. But, the ability to just win by decking out, which is essentially what this card is kind of trying to say, except for over triggers, is still very good. A very solid addition to the deck. Also very pretty art, must I say. Like, I don't always like the art that I've seen from the past few strides in this premium collection. A lot of arts are pretty, but, somewhere a bit mid. But this art is beautiful. And beyond that, if you look closely in the background, you actually have a ship that kind of looks like Bad Bounty. So I like that flavor as well. When put on G, Counterblast 1, the attacking unit gets critical -1 for every 10 cards in your drop zone. I like this card. Is it insane? No. When I heard that every clan was getting a G Guardian in this collection, I thought, what the hell are they gonna give Granblue? We have everything. Like, it is one of the most privileged clans in terms of G Guardians. The only ones that would be more privileged are probably like Kagero and Naru, purely because they're like easy-ass Denial Griffins. But Granblue has a hard-ass Denial Griffin, and it also has a PG of Nora. So Granblue has everything for G Guards anyway. So I was really wondering, what could they possibly do? What can they possibly fucking do? And this is a pretty good option. It is essentially doing what Nora does very often, but it gets around Linka. I'm sorry, Chris. I like this one for that reason as well. Kind of a PG, though only up to 2 crits, I feel. Usually you're not gonna be at 30. So this is probably a 1 or 2 crit PG. Counterblast 1 hurts, but usually we do have the Counterblast for this. It is much more likely that we don't have the soul for Nora. So I like this card. I don't think it'll be run at high copies, but you're still going to be happy that you have it in your deck sometimes. Then we have Barakat. Oh, this is an all-time low member. Auto on V. When it attacks cost, turn a card in your G-zone phase up. If your opponent has 3 or more open rear until end of battle, this unit gets power +10, critical +1, drive +1. If your opponent has 5 or more open R, all of your rear arts get power +10. I think this stride isn't that amazing. I think very often when you're playing Kagero, you are essentially an aggro deck, and I don't think this aggro's enough to justify striding it. The only time I would see you striding it is if you're like, oh fuck, I need to like get a drive, like I need to just draw a card basically. I don't have everything, like anything else really going for me right at the moment. And then you'll be very happy that this is a thing. Unless I'm forgetting a certain Kagero Crayon Tiger restanding your entire column or something along those lines, I don't think the +10 to rear guards is that good. So yeah, will you play this? Yes, you will play this at 1. You're gonna be happy sometimes that you have an extra drive just to get the fucking draw. But is it great? I don't think so. I don't think this is what they needed. Auto. The amount of cards needed to be discarded for this cost is reduced by 1 for each open R your opponent has. When put on G, cost Soul Blast 1, discard 4, choose one of your units, and it cannot be hit until end of battle. When does anyone on purpose not have rear guards? Spectral Blaster Diablo? They get rid of their own rear guards. Good with Lawkeeper, yeah, okay. I don't know, generally people have rear guards. And then what? Like, the best thing you can do is, like, run Denial Griffin and the CB2 grade 2 that after you Denial Griffin retires something else and then this one gets slightly better. I think you'll play one of this just so that when your opponent over-triggers and nothing in your hand is a PG, you will just throw everything away anyway just to live through the over-trigger. I would still play one, but I think it's one that will not come up very often. 1 or 2 off? I don't even know about 2, but... definitely 1. Orange got to reveal this thing. Radiate Ocean Helltroda. Looks like a Grand Blue card to me. But when this unit attacks, discard 3. Return all of the cards on your circles other than V to your hand. Note how this also returns locked units. They could have given this wording to Gold Paladin as well. It's in the same set. It is functionally the same thing. But they decided not to on purpose. Now, I understand that history-wise, Bermuda has already been doing this with Anj and so forth. So this is like in flavor, but it's just really hilarious to me. They could have also given this to Shadows. You know, Shadows could have easily had the exact same wording on their retire, you know, like retire the cards on your circles other than blah, blah, blah to do the restand. But history-wise, gold can indeed unlock as well, yes. But on purpose, they only gave the unlock cost to this stride. So you return all of the cards in your circles other than V to your hand. Choose up to 2 cards from your hand and call them to R. So you're basically an Olivia at that point. And then, but they can be different columns. So technically a better Olivia. At the end of that battle, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, put this unit into your G-Zone, choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. If you strode over Anj, you get to do an Anj. If you strode over Lupina, you get to do a Lupina. If you strode over Tirua, you get to do a Tirua, and so forth. So you get to play V with premium shenanigans, and then you basically get to play, you know, whichever V deck you fancy, right? Or G deck, but I don't really think there's any, like, proper G stuff. You could also play Overdress with this. So again, I don't really see anything, like, too great in matches. I've heard people talk about Kyrie and so forth, but, you know, I think mostly you'll be playing, you know, V together with premium rear guards with this. It's really solid in my opinion. Now, I saw some people instantly go mad, going, oh, Bermuda is broken, blah, blah, blah. This with Riviere lets you ride down after you Superior Road. It's like, bruh, how many things do you want to go right? And why do you want to have 0 cards in your hand so badly? The Superior Ride in Riviere, first of all, doesn't go off that often. You need to have Mermaid Idol, which you have Searchers for, but again, how many fucking like dog shit cards do you want to run just to get the Mermaid Idol ride? And then you need to have the Selena as well. So it's a lot of ifs of stuff you need in hand just to do the Superior Ride. That's a lot of deck slots just to do a Superior Ride, which sucks when you go second. Like, at least Tra was good going second as well. This is only good going first. To then do the Superior Ride, and then you have to stride this thing. The Selena Superior Ride, by the way, was already a fat minus to do. Now, usually it's worth it, you know, for your aggro. But now you're gonna do 3 more discards on top of that? Like, bruh, you're -5ing yourself. To do this play, you're gonna have no cards after that play. And like, after that, your power curve, you know, plummets again. Because Riviere doesn't have Trust, so your Tirua turn kind of sucks ass. Your Megiddo turn kind of sucks ass. There's a lot of stuff sucking ass. So the people, you know, going crazy over, oh wow, Riviere is now tier 0, are wrong. Now, would you play this if you played Riviere? Yeah, sure, of course. It's an improvement on that Riviere game plan. I don't think this makes Riviere by itself a crazy deck. It just, you know, adds on to what Riviere was already doing. But Riviere right now isn't doing much, competitively speaking. But so, I do think this stride is very good, obviously. Like, it's probably in the top 5. Somewhere in the top 5, this stride lives. It does a lot. Now, some people also think this is broken, but what they don't realize is that the discard 3 is before everything. That's a pretty big difference. Like, if you compare Momo to Bad Bounty, you will, and you play both decks, you will instantly feel the difference between paying your discard before your Vanguard attacks and after. And again, technically it's the same type of minus, right? But the fact that you go to see your drive checks and change your hand depending on that and then decide your discards is a huge deal. Huge deal. Because sometimes you won't even have the discards, right? Like you'll want to have called rear guards and you're like, damn, I can't even pay for my discards after that. Yes, the bad bounty discard is much, much better. So when this unit is put on G, Counterblast 1, return a normal unit from R to hand. Perform the following according to the grade. 2 or less, it gets 15k shield. 3 or more, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets power plus 5 until end of turn. This is really good as well. Very often, you want to be able to return like certain cards. And it's kind of like a +1 to hand, right? Like, so I often see people go like, oh, +1 to hand, +1 to field, it's the same thing, you know, it's still a minus or a plus or a blah, blah, blah. It's not the same fucking thing. If you have the choice to get something that's on rear back into your hand, that's better than it being on field because you can still choose to put it back on the field. So the fact that you can grab something from field and add it to hand is very good. Especially because there's a lot of grade 1s with 10k shield that you placed to activate an effect, and now they're just kind of boosters. So if you can then turn those back into shield, that's good. Brilliant Blister does that in Mega Colony, and it's a very good card for that reason as well. So the fact that you can just grab anything and then have massive shield, awesome. However, in other decks, where you're able to return grade 3s, maybe like Highlander or some other decks as well, this making your Vanguard bigger is huge. This is so big. Especially because Bermuda also has other cards that make the Vanguard even bigger. We saw a Bermuda deck with Liddy that make their Vanguard bigger. We saw a deck like Highlander plays Magical Yelnina sometimes to make the Vanguard bigger. They have Pumo calling out the Overdress Grade 1 that makes the Vanguard bigger. So this again helps with that kind of game plan and basically mitigates the need for checking defensive triggers as much. So this card is very good. This G-Guard is solid. The CB does kind of hurt, but yeah, I really like this G-Guard. Very solid one. It's not a PG, you know, but I think it does so much utility-wise that you're still glad with it. Nubatama. Act on V once per turn. Cost Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. Choose 3 unit cards from your opponent's drop, and your opponent may choose any number of them and call them to R. Your opponent cannot activate the auto abilities, of course, and for each unit called, your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand and discards it. For each card chosen by this effect that was not called, you draw 1, and your front row units get power plus 10. It's a lot of text. Essentially, your opponent gets the choice. Do I -1 from my hand to call something that's probably garbage to board? Otherwise, they get 2+. So usually your opponent will just say, fuck off, take your draws. But that's still good. That would be 30k to the front and draw 3. Some opponents might go like, I'll call 1 or 2. If the hand is really, really big, you might just call all 3 and tell the Nuba player to go suck it. Though they might combine it with a Mizukaze, making the turn much, much scarier. Overall, I think usually you're going to stride Jakumeso or Rine more so than this card. Will you play this? Sure. I think a Rine Mizukaze is much scarier than this with Mizukaze. This with Mizukaze is gross? Yeah, sure, but I think Rine with Mizukaze is scarier still. When put on G, cost Counterblast 1 for each card in your opponent's hand. This unit gets shield +5. If your opponent's hand has 4 less cards in their hand, draw 1. This is good. We are in a format where everyone has giant hands, so this thing will always be giant. If the hand wasn't giant, you just get your cost refunded. Do you always have the CB? Worst case, you have the ninja guy, the grade 1, that is like a ditch and draw and a counter charge. You will play this and be happy, and you're gonna have the CB. Very, very likely. Overall, I think Nuba got a good G-Guard, a decent stride. When this unit attacks, Counterblast 1, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 cards from among them, put them on R as locked cards and shuffle your deck. Then choose any number of your locked cards and unlock each card or return it to your hand. For each card returned to your hand, your opponent chooses one of their rear guards and locks it. It's a multi-attack. Lock your opponent's field, possibly +2 hand. Multi-attack in Chaos. Potentially abusable with given in the leaders. Now, is this broken? Nah. Messiah doesn't want to use this that badly because they want to use Messiah names. I would put it somewhere in the middle again. Kai also mentioned high roll with Blast Monk that you could do. That's pretty disgusting. But it's also just a high roll, so whenever it doesn't go off, you're going to feel real sad. But I do think this card has potential. Chaos hasn't had proper multi-attack. So this card could do that, and we'll see what that actually brings. Because like Gridora always had the issue of being a deck that stops your opponents from playing the game, but doesn't play the game itself, and that's why it sucked. Chaos had the similar issue. Stops your opponent from playing the game, but doesn't play the game itself, and that's why it sucked. This card might make them play the game. I don't really know of good Link Joker beaters, because I haven't tried to like make lists for them that much. Usually I just copy and play a template deck for them. But It's possible that we see Chaos actually play the game with this stride, so we'll see what that does. Zistral said he hated the cards. That's fine, I'm not a Link Joker player. Then we have the G-Guard. When this unit is put on G, Soul Blast 1, lock 1 or more back row rear guards. This unit gets power plus 10. If you have 2 or more locked cards, draw a card. This kind of just fulfills a bunch of niches other G guards already do. So it kind of opens up slots and it's probably usually going to be better than some of the things you do have. Again, fine inclusion. Definitely in the middle of the pack somewhere, I feel, for G guard quality that we've seen. Not crazy, but you do run it. I think you're running that too. Soul is pretty tight. Yes, that's the only issue. I also talked to Kai about this. Soul is already an issue to a point where I was playing like the Order, the Prison Order, just to build Soul. I saw other people use other cards. It's whatever you want to use really, but Soul is indeed a pretty hurtful resource for the deck. And no, we have not seen the Angel Feather cards. I'm really looking forward to the Angel Feather cards.